Welcome to the Healing Centered Conversations podcast, where we create space for conversations that heal. I'm your host, Dr. Byron McClure, a nationally certified school psychologist. I, along with our special guests, will give you insight to promote collective healing by putting people first. Through weekly conversations with educators, psychologists, and healers, we'll discuss ways to heal, thrive, and live your best life. This is the Healing Center Conversations podcast. Welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dr. McClure, where we create conversations that heal. Through weekly conversations with educators, psychologists, and healers, we discuss ways to heal, thrive, and live your best life. This is the Healing Center Conversations podcast. Y'all, on today's show, we're going to focus on thriving with none other than the amazing, the brilliant, her hair is laid today, the thriving school psychologist, Dr. Rebecca Branstetter. Dr. Branstetter is a school psychologist, speaker, and author on a mission to help children be the best they can be in school and in life by supporting school psychologists, educators, and families. She's also the founder of the Thriving School Psychologist Collective, an online community dedicated to improving mental health and learning supports in public schools. She's also the co-creator of the Make It Stick Parenting course, which provides parents tools. She and her husband are proud parents to 2 daughters and 2 furry husky dogs in the San Francisco Bay Area. Dr. Branstetter, welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast.
Thank you. I'm so fortunate that my annual haircut fell on, the day before I did your podcast. So sorry, audio listeners, but it's looking good today and I'm happy about it. As a school psychologist, we're often so busy. We don't have time for self-care. And so I'm so happy to be here. And I'm thrilled that you are doing this podcast to talk about thriving, because as you know, that is my jam. That's what I love to talk about.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into all things thriving today, but I just want to check in. How are you? Really, for real?
For real, I am good. I am busy in the very best of ways. Sometimes we think of busy as a bad thing, but I am busy in the most fun way. I am enjoying what I'm doing. I'm creating tools for parents and school psychs and connecting with my school psych community, and my kids are back in school in person, and I'm really doing well. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. And so your platform is called the Thriving School Psych Collective, but for me, I had to learn what a school psychologist even was, and I found out on accident once I actually was in grad school. So I would love to hear about what led you to become a school psychologist, and then also just talk a little bit about what a school psychologist even is.
Yeah, so I'm like you. I feel like a lot of us stumble into the profession, and there's a 2-part story to my origin story. The first part is that I was one of those kids where when I was little, I loved school so much that I played school on the weekends. I also want to note for the record, I had friends, but I would also rope them in. You must just spit out your water for those of you on the audio. I
definitely almost spit my water out. I was this close.
I would rope them into playing school because I loved learning. And I have a prop. It's my childhood teddy bear, Grizzlette. She would set her up and I'd give her math facts. And I just loved the life of school. And I'd always been that way. And then I was really surprised that not everyone loves school. I was like, wait, this is, when you sort of get in the middle in high school, you're like, wow, you don't all love school. That's crazy to me. And I love school so much. I went to grad school and PhD, and I kept going and going and going. But how I got into school psych is actually a gypsy from Reno, Nevada. I will elaborate. So I was
This is fascinating.
I know. For those of you who don't know, I was pulled into the profession by a gypsy. And one day, Gypsy, this person who enticed me into school psych, is going to hear one of these podcasts and hear me speak, and she's going to reach out to me, and I'm going to thank her. I was presenting at a undergraduate school psych conference in Nevada, And I was really set to be like a child psychologist in clinical practice. And I think you had a similar dream, right?
That's right. Yep. My
Yeah.
path was clinical psychology. Yep.
Yeah. So I was going to have my own little private practice. And then I was in Reno and I didn't know anyone. And so I went out to dinner and I went to this place that was, sort of a European style seating where you could sit next to anyone. And so, you know how when you're at a conference and you forget to take your badge off, like you're like geeking out at a restaurant wearing your badge. I sat next to this woman. Her name was Gypsy, and she was a school psychologist. And we started talking about what school psychology. I'd never heard of it. And she's like, "It's the best profession. You get to reach and teach the kids who can't afford mental health services, who otherwise wouldn't be able to access them. You get to reach all the kids." And I was sold. I was like, "That sounds exactly like what I want to do."
That's amazing. And it seems so many school psychologists who I talk to share a similar story to where they're just kind of wandering, going on about life, and then they meet the right person that introduces them to the field. And so you meet this woman, Gypsy, she motivates you, encourages you, and then what happens from there?
So then I realized that I could blend my love of learning for helping kids who don't love learning. And as you know, a lot of kids, when they struggle with learning or emotions or behaviors or feelings or family struggles or, life struggles, they don't love going to school. And that breaks my heart because school should be a place of love and learning. And so like I used to teach Grizzlette, my little childhood teddy bear, I also wanted to reach and teach kids. So I went to UC Berkeley to get my PhD, and I started my career in the San Francisco Bay Area with big dreams of changing the world. Like I was going to make it happen. I'm not sure how, but I was going to single-handedly like reach and teach every child that I ever came into. My passion ran deep and wide for helping students.
Awesome, awesome. And so you went to UC Berkeley and then you worked. How long did you work as a school psychologist, and what was that experience like for you actually doing the work?
So I have been a school psychologist for, I think, 20 years. So obviously I
No
started when
way.
I was 5, right?
Right.
I graduated Berkeley when I was 10 and then started my illustrious career. And so I've worked in a variety of different school districts. I started in a large urban school district, and then I went to a smaller school district, and then I switched again. And what I was doing is I was trying to find a district that kind of recognized what school psychologists did. I was feeling trapped in many districts I went in a testing only role. So for those of you who don't know what school psychs do, when there's a student who's struggling with learning, you might get to a school psychologist and she or he may test them to see how they learn best and what's getting in the way. What do you do about it? And it's a valuable role that we play. And you might, have students qualify for special education services or other things they might be entitled to. So it's a very important critical role school psychs do. But I kept thinking, like, why am I testing all these individual kids when I can see in this whole school that we have a school-wide challenge? We have a school-wide challenge with trauma. We have a school-wide challenge with kids who don't speak English or not learning how to read, and testing each one of them individually, saying the problems within that child. How do we, help that each individual? It just felt inefficient, and it just felt like I wasn't reaching kids, and I was reaching kids 10 steps behind when I needed to, which was when they first started showing the problems. And so I was in multiple districts, one where I was just a testing machine. I was like, test, meeting, repeat, test, meeting, repeat. I was in another district where I did more counseling and I loved it, but it was a lot. It was really heavy on me. And then I was in a district where didn't have a lot of assessment or counseling, but the parent group was very involved and really hovering and litigious. So I've been in so many different districts and I was always on the same quest. And that quest was to thrive as a school psychologist and share my gifts. I do have a gift for testing and writing reports, but I have other gifts that I wanted to share. And it became really clear to me, Byron, that, and I think you mentioned this, you're a featured person in my book, The Thriving School Psychologist, Chapter 5, about my dream was too big for the districts I was in. And I tried so hard to make it work and so hard to change the system within. And I think I made some inroads, but in the end, after 20 years, I was like, I got to branch out. I have to tap into what I know. And that is when you help the adults around kids thrive, the kids thrive.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear if there was a pivotal moment when you recognized, like, this is just too big. My dreams are too big. and what I want to do, I can't do it within the system. Was there a pivotal moment, or was it just a accumulation of different events that just happened over time?
It's a little of both. I think the first seed was planted for the Thriving School Psychologist when I was about 8 or 9 years into the profession. I was pregnant with my first daughter. And I had this moment where I was trying to get caught up, and my caseload was so high because, as you know, a lot of school psychologists have double, triple the recommended caseloads. So I was trying to get caught up, and I went to the district office after work, and I was typing up reports, and there was a lockdown on campus for an intruder. And so the intruder had a gun, and I'm under the table, and I'm like clutching my belly and being like, what am I doing?
Wow, because you were pregnant at
I
that
was
time.
pregnant. I'm like, this is not just my stress. This is my baby's stress. And I am all in for school psych, but I'm not all in to be a school psychologist who's just a bureaucrat churning out reports. That's not what I signed up for. I'm not putting my life and my baby's life at risk to write reports. And I drove home and I was like, I got to quit being a school psychologist. And I was super like, obviously, everyone was okay, thankfully. But I got home and told my husband, I'm like, I got to quit being a school psychologist. I love it, but I can't do this. And I don't know how I'm going to get insurance, but I'll talk to the guy. Like, I was like ready to quit. And as the weird way that life works sometimes, as you know, Josie Bass Publishers reached out and said, hey, do you want to write a book called The School Psychologist Survival Guide, which is now a textbook for school psychologists. And at the time I was like, oh, that's ironic. I'm about to quit. So I was like, yes, I take the challenge. How does it? How do you survive in this profession? And I went and did a whole ton of research, and figured out ways that we could thrive even in a really challenging circumstances. So we wouldn't lose another school psychologist. And then that was sort of the big moment. And then there was a slow march towards, am I the only one who sees this? Am I the only one who sees we're overworked and underutilized? And I was like, that can't be. So in 2017, I did an experiment that ended up being the Thriving School Psychologist. I said, who is with me? Let's change the system from within. We're the ones we've been waiting for. I put out my online course and community, the Thriving School Psychologist, as an experiment. And over 130 school psychologists signed up in a week over the whole country. And I was like, this is a thing. This is a grassroots movement. And I couldn't believe it. I thought I'd hit the school psych lottery because there was all these other people who were like, no, I can do more than test and write reports. I have a lot to offer. And how many years later, we've had over probably 750 to 800 school psychologists go through the program and become alumni. And they're making changes. They're making amazing changes in their districts.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I stumbled upon entrepreneurship. I like to say I accidentally created a business. I didn't set out to do that. I just wanted to connect with other school psychs with big missions like mine. And I haven't shared this with a lot of folks, but I think it's important to the story because I hear it all the time with my members of the Thriving School Psych community, is that they love their students. They love what they do, but they know they have more to give. And another pivotal moment for me was when my mom was diagnosed with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, which is when you Google it, you know that it's not going to be long. It's a horrible disease that takes people very quickly. And, at the time I was like, life is short. Relationships matter. Caring matters. My mom was a teacher and she poured her whole life into teaching. And that gave her joy in the end because she knew she'd help the kids. And I was like, I got to do something. I got to do something big. And that was really the post-traumatic growth moment that pushed me into doing this full time. I was like, this is what I need to be doing. And COVID pushed me. I was I like to say between trapezes, Byron, which is like, I was holding a little bit onto the traditional role of a school psych and health insurance and all the things that come along with it. And I knew I wanted to be on that other side of the trapeze, but I was like, God, I don't know is there a safety net in between? And COVID, everything shut down. And I pivoted my whole work to helping school psychs help the kids, helping parents help the kids. And I found it to be so rewarding. Like I was like TGIM. We were in a lot of stress, but we were in it together. When I started Thriving School Psych in 2017, I was like, and it comes with monthly Zoom calls. And people are like, what's a Zoom call? And then when shelter in place hit in California, we had a Zoom call that day. It was already organized. And so we
Wow.
got on, and it was like various phases of the Titanic where like some people were like freaking out and some people were like playing the violin, like it's going to be fine. But we
While the
had each
ship's
other.
going down. Yep.
Yes. Like, how do I be a school psychologist? I'm like, let's figure this out. Look, Mr. Rogers was the best social emotional learning teacher of all time, and he did it all virtually. So we can do this. And we banded together. And that's when you, I think, started your YouTube channel. And I shared it
That's
with
right.
everybody. And within a week, we had distance 504 plans, which wasn't even anything that the English language has ever strung together before. Like, how do we help kids with distance learning who have disabilities? And because I had that community, we were lightning fast in helping the kid. So there was a series of things that now, upon reflection, were like breadcrumbs to where I am. But it's opening up the lens, being like, I can do more. I can be
So,
more. I can help more.
Rebecca, I'm interested to hear, and where this isn't part of the show notes or the script or anything, but I'm really interested to hear how you've adopted this mindset of just adapting, right? I talk a lot in my work about understanding your strengths so that you can thrive, right? And so I'm interested to hear, is that just who you are as part of your makeup and you're able to tap in your strength to be adaptable to these situations and to use some of the pain, some of the things that you experience in life and the story that you shared about your mom, that's a very personal story. So thank you for sharing. But did you use your strengths and the things that you go through to adapt and then to use that to thrive in your life?
I talk a lot about strengths and tapping into your well of strengths as a school psych because it's a stressful job. It's a lot to hold. It's a lot. And it's so rewarding and so stressful. And I never thought of myself as having like, oh, my strength is adaptability. I've actually, of course, because I'm a school psychologist, took data on this and I took a strength survey to see what my top strengths were. And I encourage you and your listeners to do it too. It's the Via Character survey.
Yeah,
It's via character.org. And I took it, and my top strength was love of learning, which goes back to my girl
interesting.
Grizzlette, who I loved teaching when I was little. And I
Wow.
think that when it all hits the fan, my instinct is, what can I learn from this? And maybe that fuels adaptability, but instead of like, I hate this, I reject this, I don't like it, that can all be true at the same time. I also flip straight to, wait, what can I learn from this? And I think that helps. I can err on the side of being a little too Pinkie Pie, which I don't know if you're familiar with the My Little Pony series, but Pinkie Pie is this like toxically positive pony who, like, no matter what is happening, she's like trying to see the good side of it. And
Right. I'm thinking of
and
Ted Lasso, right? The
yeah,
forever optimist. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I'm kind of a Pinkie Pie. Like, I'm going down a whirlpool and I'm like, wee, like, what, this could be fun. Like, I'm trying always to reframe. School psychs are great at reframing stress for meaning. And I'm like, what meaning can I make out of this stress? How can I anchor in that stress, know my truth, and then twist into thriving? And that's sort of just how I live my life is, what can I learn from this?
And that's powerful because you're tapping into something that's intrinsic within you, your love of learning, and you're still using that to this day. You use it in the midst of a crisis and you turn that into healing. And so I would love to shift this conversation to the thriving collective and this community that you've really built up. I would love to hear a little bit more about this collective, about the community, and what you all do day in and day out.
Yeah, so the Thriving School Psychologist Collective, it's an online course and community for school psychologists who probably have big dreams, or at least they know that they have more to offer. They don't want to be just a testing machine and report writing machine. And so I think when you bring together a group of people who are mission driven and optimistic and hopeful for our profession and changing from within, there's a synergy that happens that is really palpable. So I don't know about you, but like I was always sort of looking for this type of community. And for me, one of the pillars of thriving in my book is connecting and collaborating with other school psychs. And I was finding in my school district that happened once a month at staff meetings. And it was usually procedural and paperwork driven meetings. And I would see another school psych and I would be like first person since the apocalypse moment. I'd be like, there's another one. You get me. Like,
That's right.
right. And so I was like, how can I create that? Will it work virtually? And so we started this community where there's a private forum, there's online self-driven modules of learning around the 4 pillars, how to streamline your workflow, how to connect with others, how to do more than just testing, how to help kids earlier, how to thrive and understand the science of burnout, that it's more than just self-care Sunday, right? That self-care is done off the job. I love it. I'm all in for a good massage or, a walk or whatever. But you can't do that in the school building. You can't be like, excuse me, this meeting is really stressful. I'm going to go get a massage. I mean, you can, but this doesn't look good. So
Right.
how can we cultivate self-care in the jobs? How can we cultivate self-compassion? So those are the themes it's a 10-month program. So we work together throughout the course of the whole school year on how can we thrive? Because when we thrive, our kids thrive. And we meet on Zoom and we troubleshoot and we work it out together. And I think the thing that I love the most about Thriving School Psych is, of course, with the love of learning theme, you can't know everything. Like, you can't. And so when you're like, hey, I have a student who is selectively mute and I can't reach them, teach them right now. Like, they don't talk in school. You bet your bottom dollar there is a school psychologist who has expertise in that. And we send out the TSP bat signal, Thriving School Psych bat signal. Who knows about selective mutism? In minutes, we have people being like, I do. Who knows about autism assessment? I got you. And it's that feeling of I got you that is so powerful. And I think that's what makes it work and why people are drawn to it. And it's also, I don't know if you've had this experience, Byron, but where you go to like a school psych forum on Facebook and it's all just like memes about like things that suck about being a school psych, right?
Yeah.
We all need comic relief. I'm all for a good meme. But that type of community wasn't what I needed. I didn't need to snark about like how many assessments I have. I needed people to process and problem solve with me. And again, I'm not bashing on comic relief. Like, we need it. That's great. And I love it. But I also needed a place, and I wanted to create a safe healing space for school psychologists where you can show up. If you feel like we are on the Titanic and we are all drowning, we got you. If you feel like I'm playing the violin, I'm feeling optimistic, you pull people up. And so you can show up however you want as a school psychologist. You can show up and be like, today I hated my job. You can show up and say, hey, today I made a difference, and we can all celebrate with you. And there's something really powerful about having that community, because school psychs don't often have that. We have people who in the building, but we don't have our people in the building. We're the only one.
Yeah. And I loved how you're explaining this, because it's power in your words and power in community and connection, especially in our day and age with technology. And, it's easy to lose that connection. And with this collective, you're doing that, and you're absolutely right. Even with the technology that we have, it's easy for someone to go on social media and flock towards the negativity of it all. In my perspective, part of being healing is leading towards how can I get to a place to where I can thrive, which I love, love, love about your platform. So Rebecca, I would love to hear in your perspective, what does it mean to thrive, right? And what are the psychologists, the people who you work with, you're working towards thriving, but what does it mean and what does it look like to be able to thrive?
That's a really good question. I mean, I have these theories of change to how school psychs and humans indeed can move from survival mode to thriving. And part of it is, when you're in the flow as a person and you're like, wow, 3 hours just passed. And I am in this and I am feeling like this is what I'm meant to do. And this is fun. This is engaging. This don't feel like work. That's how I feel when I'm teaching, when I'm connecting with school psychs, when I'm helping parents with their kids who are blowing out, shutting down and blowing up, because I can be of service and it doesn't feel even like work to me. So I think thriving is figuring out ways to streamline and automate the parts of our job that we have to do, but we don't feel like really fill our cup and fill us up and keep us in flow. That's part of it. And then also cultivating that passion project that's deep inside you that you know you have. And I know you have one because you're living it right now, lessons for SEL, and really cultivating that. So I think that one of the things about thriving that's so interesting is that when school psychs aren't thriving, there's this feeling that something's gone wrong. I signed up for this. What's wrong? I'm not thriving. I'm just going through my day and I'm feeling stressed. What I learned from supervising interns, mid-career, and a later career school psychs, and coaching in the Thriving School Psych Collective is there is actually a little bit of a natural progression that school psychologists all go through. And if they can work through these challenges at 3 points in their career, I feel like they can thrive at any phase. That first bit is just called like figuring it out. Like, oh my gosh, this is so much. The learning curve is like almost like a vertical line. Like it's so steep.
And Rebecca, but before you go on, you mentioned this is for school psychologists, but is this broad enough to be for anyone, for educators or parents or for entrepreneurs or for anyone?
100%, especially for teachers and other educators. There's just that first couple years where you're just trying to figure it all out. What's my job? What's my role? What are my boundaries? How do I streamline that? And that's part of it, and it's normal. And so the risk is if you get overwhelmed, you'll exit, right? You'll try to find a new career. And we've had plenty of school psychologists who are like, oh no, I'm out. This isn't what I signed up for. You got to work through that initial phase. And that's where we really hold a lot of school psychs in our collective. The second phase is, okay, I got the logistics. I got my lay of the land. I figured this out. But wait, is this all there is? Like, is there something else? Like, I know how to do this job pretty well, but I feel like there's something more I have to give. And so that's when, you really expand your role. And then later in their career, and these can happen at any time, there's like, okay, well, I've expanded my role and I've got my hand on the job, but now, God, I feel like maybe I'm just kind of like phoning it in, like doing time, like kind of like until retirement, and people get sort of burnt out. And really, at that point is where you have the most power. You can be the sage. You can, help the next generation of school psychologists and teachers and really share your collective wisdom with folks. So I think that, at each of these phases, we need to hold people up. And, too, as a new parent, it's tough. Like there's this figuring it out phase, and then it's wanting to do more. And then it's giving your wisdom to your friend who's had a baby. It follows that same flow. And there's something about thriving, I think, that is in that giving space, that giving back. Like, here's what I know. Let me share some of that wisdom with you.
Yeah, Rebecca, and you shared so much wisdom with me. And I think that as a psychologist, your wisdom is spot on. Even as a parent, your wisdom is spot on. And I can follow those 3 steps, even to the extent where my son is literally in my arms right now. He's being hidden by the mic, but right, we have to adjust. And I love how you explain how thriving is being in this concept of flow. And I always explain flow. It's like Michael Jordan when he's out there on the court and has that perfect mix of challenge and tapping into his talents and his strengths, and he's doing what he loves. And I remember listening to an interview, and he explained it as if the hoop was huge and that he just couldn't miss. And you're doing what you love. And the fact that you have built a community focused on that, sensational. And so with the community that you've built, I would love for you to share, especially for our entrepreneurs and people who are looking to build a sense of community. How did you go about building such a large community through your social media?
I am an accidental entrepreneur.
I'm not buying it. I feel like it's by design with you.
No. So I actually started the Notes from the School Psychologist blog when blogs first started. So before you were born, probably. No, it was called Blogspot. And it was like this super beta version of the blog. And I just started writing out into the community. And I mean, this was, 18 years ago. I mean, it was ages ago. And I just started writing my experience, and then people started following. And I started a Facebook page, and then people started following. And so 10 years, I just sort of connected with people. I wasn't selling anything. I was just wanting to connect. And I think that in that process of just giving and giving for years and years of just like and connecting, by the time I became an entrepreneur, accidentally. People knew me and they liked what I had to say and they trusted me. And when you have those three things, it's a lot easier to be an entrepreneur because people are like, oh, I'd like to buy that because I know her stuff. I know her. She's familiar. She gets it. She's, I like the way she, explains stuff, whatever it is. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, the first way is to kind of find a community that you can give to and know and like and trust and listen to them. When I was writing my Thriving School Psych book, I said, what's the hardest part about being a school psych? And this I had thousands of people emailing me and messaging me about what it was that was so challenging. Well, what do you love about being a school psych? And I mined that community for what they wanted. And then I created something they wanted and I wanted. I will say that I had a lot of help along the way. I hired business coaches. I hired online business mentors. I hired a lot of people to help me with the very scary world of tech. I'm decently tech savvy, but I was like, how do I an online business seemed really big and a little scary because I'm just a school psych. What do I know about business? But when you have good mentors and good coaches telling you, here's the steps, then it's all about putting progress over perfection. And, shout out to my mentor, Janine Blackwell, who was just held me every step of the way. And she was coaching me on, what's your dream? What's your zone of genius? What's that sweet spot? What's your flow? How can you do that and outsource the rest?
That's powerful, especially for those who might be listening who want to build their own platform. One, tapping into community through giving first. And I see a lot on social media and even people who will reach out to me and they're just blasting, what they're selling. And it's okay, but what value are you giving to others? And what I'm hearing you say is you were providing so much value. It led to trust. And then once you had that trust, it allowed you to even build a stronger community, which is powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost think of it like a funnel. There's people who just want to, learn from you and access and be a part of your community. There's people who might buy a product like my book, The Thriving School Psychologist. Okay, that's something I want to buy. And then they might want to join my community, my inner circle. So I'm not for everyone. And as an entrepreneur, you got to know, if you're not for someone, that's fine, right? So you just provide your value, you put yourself out there, and it's tough to put yourself out there online. I'm not going to lie, because people really do respond to you as a lightning rod. They might love you, they might hate you, they might feel indifferent about you. And it isn't even about you. You just do you really well as an entrepreneur. And the people who like that are going to come with you. And the people who don't are going to fall off. And that's fine. It takes a lot, I think, as an entrepreneur, because I want everyone to love everything. I want to pinkie pie the hell out of everything I do.
Yeah.
I love this. Why don't you all love this? Right?
Right. Yeah, and it's your thing that you built, that you poured your all into, and you want people to receive it. And I listened to he's a radio personality. He's really more than a radio personality, Charlemagne the God. And one of the things that he always says is that out of 10 people, 3 people are going to love what you do, 3 people are going to hate what you do, and the rest, they're going to be indifferent. And so it makes sense to spend your time focused on the 3 people that are going to love what you do, or even the 4 people who might be indifferent. You might be able to sway them one way or the other through giving value to what they're doing. And so I would love to hear, if you were to say 1, maybe 2 of the biggest challenges or obstacles that you face as a founder, entrepreneur, big guru in this space that you've had to face. And then how were you able to overcome it?
Well, number 1 was tech. How do you integrate all the things to work automatically? That was huge. I was I don't know how to do this. And I had a little tech phobia about it too. I was is this a thing I can do? And then once you find people who that is their zone of genius and they love to geek out on it, that was really, really helpful. Another thing I think that's been the most challenge for me, and I would say it's a surprising challenge, is getting school districts to invest in their school psychologists. So school districts, obviously a lot of them are, strapped for budgets and budget priorities are set. But I have been working so hard to get districts to understand that school psychologists are linchpins. We're in a mental health crisis. We are in a crisis. We were in a crisis before COVID. 1 in 4 kids has a learning or emotional difference that makes it hard for them to learn. That was pre-COVID. So many kids have anxiety. So many kids are not loving learning. And it baffles me that not every school district is like, let's sign every school psychologist up for the Thriving School Psychologist, because when our school psychs thrive, everybody thrives. School psych can reach parents, kids, teachers, everybody. School psychologists are the linchpin to getting mental health access to kids who, like we all started at the top of this, talk, who can't access it otherwise. And so that's been my biggest struggle, which is I've had a lot of just individual school psychs come into my community, but where are the districts? Where's the funding for helping our school psychs help all the students? And they have to know, and it baffles me that, school psychs are overworked and underutilized. We have a lot to offer. We can reach so many kids and heal so many communities when we have caseloads that are reasonable, when we have professional development that helps us learn how to thrive. So that's been the struggle. And it relates back to like, this is great. Why isn't everyone see this is great and buy this thing? Because it's so great. And I always say districts are penny wise and pound foolish. They don't want to spend on that. And then they're paying for it later. They just don't realize it.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that. And again, why the work that you're doing is so important, because thriving is for everyone. So Rebecca, what has been the biggest reward for you out of doing this?
Oh my gosh. I would say when school psychologists email me from my community and tell me their story of taking the information from my course and community and they've turned it into transformation. So they will write me and say things like, I'm only on page 16 of your book and I'm crying because I finally feel seen. And that's so powerful to me. I want school psychs to feel seen, heard, understood, supported. When school psychs reach out to me and say, I was doing 100 testing cases a year, just churning them out. No one knew my name. They're like, that's the lady who comes in and tests. And she's like, I successfully advocated to do social emotional learning full-time in the classroom. And I shifted my role. When school psychs say, my marriage was crumbling, my friendships were crumbling, my mental health was crumbling, and I took your course and I'm thriving again. Like, I feel like I can have a baby now because I have more energy and passion for what I do. I didn't think this was possible. When people email me and say, I was sort of joking with my colleague, like thriving school psychologist, well, that doesn't exist. Now I feel like it does. So it's inspiring school psychologists with the hope. And I know that you're one of them. You're one that you had a dream that was too big for your district. And you did a lot of inroads in your district and you made a lot of changes, but you're like, no, I can thrive in a different way. And they're all great ways. And for the school psychs holding it down in the schools and churning out reports and helping kids in special education and doing what they do, your job is so important too. And if you love testing, there's nothing wrong with that. And I love that there's people who just want to do testing, and there is seriously nothing wrong with that. I work with people who are like, I want to do that and so that's what keeps me so excited about what I do, is the stories of people who, some people I don't even know, I've never talked to them, and they have an impact. And when they make that transformation, it helps everyone in their path, the kids, the families, the teachers, even the person at the grocery store, because they're in a better mood and they don't snap at them for whatever, right? There's a ripple effect. That's what's so exciting for me.
And Rebecca, I must say that what you're saying, I've benefited directly from it. And so I know those who are part of the collective are benefiting from it. And I think everyone can benefit. Just the time that I've known you and the wisdom that you've shared with me and just implementing those nuggets that you've given me over time has helped me be able to transition to a place to where I'm able to be working, doing what I love and actualizing my dreams. Even to the extent to maybe not too long ago, one of the conversations that we had the conversation maybe a year or so ago, and then I implemented one of those things, which was a freebie, and I released this freebie giving value to people, and that resource has been downloaded. Last time I checked, it was up to about 2,500 downloads just in a very short amount of time. But then that translates to more business. And this is wisdom that you have. And it just helped me personally in my business to where I'm like, she knows what she's talking about. So I'm going to listen to her. So listeners, she knows her stuff. She is brilliant in everything that she's saying. And more importantly, I know that she's passionate and this work is near and dear to her heart. So as we bring this episode to a close, you are always working, always innovating because you have that love of learning. I would love to hear what big projects, if any, that you can share do you have up your sleeve?
I always got something in the hopper, you know it. I want to do three things. First, I want to give a gift to your listeners. And second, I want to tell you something that just dropped. And third, I want to like shout from the rooftops about the third thing. So first, I do want to give a gift to anyone out there who wants to thrive as a school psychologist. I want to give my book for free. It's The Thriving School Psychologist, and you can have the ebook version of it for free. I also want to give, because I love to have fun, the Thriving School Psychologist adult coloring book, which has all of the themes from the book and inspirational quotes in a little coloring book like, don't adapt to the energy in the room, influence the energy in the room. And just
I
some
love
great,
that.
I know, right? Like it's just so fun to color. Like it turns out adults need their own calming corner too. So if you go to thrivingschoolpsych.com/healing, you can get those resources. And, you know, I'm actually going to put in a coloring book for kids too. So I have a how to teach coping skills course, and it has a companion coloring book. So that's the second thing is I've just dropped these how to teach series. They are master classes on the things that I'm seeing as a school psychologist that our kids need the most help with. So the first thing I've just dropped is how to teach coping skills to stressed out students. That's something I know that you care a lot about. And I've dropped how to teach executive functioning to children and teens. Executive functioning being all of those planning, thinking, organizing, following through, managing big feelings that kids need right now and in the future to be successful, independent, happy learners. So that's my master classes that are on my website. But the thing I'm really jazzed about, and I can't even, like, I'm about to like explode with excitement. All the cool kids apparently are doing podcasts. Am I right?
Hey, I think you're onto something there.
I think you're onto something. So I have a podcast that stars me and my childhood teddy bear Grizzlette. It's called Teddy Talks Podcast. And it's dropping soon. It's going to hit the airwaves soon. And it's a podcast for big ideas for little ears. So it's explaining big concepts to kids in really fun ways. And so it's a family podcast for parents to listen to, for educators, for school psychs. When you have a big topic that you want to explain to children, but you're not quite sure how, this is what Grizzlette and I are going to be doing together. So that is in the pipeline and we're working really hard on it. And so it's going to be a podcast and TV show for kids. And I can't even, I'm so excited.
That is major. I wish we had some bombs. We could drop a bomb. That's on a radio show when it includes bomb. Just to celebrate, we could get some hand claps, some snaps if that's what you do. If I wasn't holding my baby, we'd get some snaps right now. That is amazing. So a podcast and a TV series. That is next level. So you are really doing all the things that you're talking about. You are living a life that is thriving. And what's encouraging is that we all can live a life to where we're thriving as well. So thank you for setting that example. How can people find you and get in touch with you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, Thriving School Psych. And if you do Thriving School Psych /healing and opt into my cool coloring book and my book, you'll be on my newsletter. And I send out all kinds of great things for school psychologists. if you're on social, Instagram at Thriving School Psych, and you can see your boy Byron on there. We did a Tea and Thriving series together and coffee chats. And so it's just like short, snackable content on how to thrive at Thriving School Psych on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest. Certainly appreciate the value bombs that you dropped and brought today so that we can all lead a life that is thriving. Thank you for this healing center conversation. It means the world. My son is grateful for this as he's in my hands, and let's keep healing. Thanks for tuning in to the Healing Center Conversations podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Healing Convo Pod across all social media platforms. Help us grow by liking, sharing, commenting, and leaving a review. Tell a friend to tell a friend about the Healing Center Conversation podcast. Take care, everyone.